Situated far from other 14ers and for the most part accessible only by way of long highway and road approaches, the reclusive and isolated peak shown here is the highest point in the La Garita Mountains and the easternmost 14er in the San Juan Range of southwest Colorado. Seen here from high on its standard northeast ridge route, the mountain is thought to have taken its name from the vast San Luis Valley to the east, which was visited hundreds of years ago by Spanish explorers riding north from Santa Fe and what would eventually become the state of New Mexico. In 1851, settlers from the then territory of New Mexico established the village of San Luis in the valley, which would become part of Colorado territory 10 years later. Today, it remains the oldest continuously inhabited town in the state of Colorado. For more about the San Luis Valley and early Spanish activity in the area, see my videos on Blanca Peak and Crestone Peak. The region was explored and mapped by the Hayden and the Wheeler surveys in the mid-1870s, and the town of Creed, 9 miles south of the mountain, was founded in the early 1890s as one of the last silver mining boom towns in the state, and one of the relatively few that survived. Climbing this peak is pretty much a Class 1 hike and walk up the entire way and presents mid-range endurance stats overall. Both in this regard and in its appearance with its smooth ridge lines, it reminds me somewhat of Mount Sherman in the Mosquito Range and stands in contrast with so many rugged 14ers in its own range. But that being said, the mountain's remoteness means that reaching the trailheads can present a logistical challenge in its own right. The Northeast Ridge Route and the South Ridge Route are the two main routes up the mountain, and both entail significant dirt road approaches and probably long highway approaches as well. The Northeast Ridge Route in particular, which I climbed on this occasion, begins at the Stewart Creek trailhead, the directions to which are shown here. It involves driving 27 miles on 4 different dirt roads after the highway turnoff. The way becomes just a bit rougher as you go, but not too rough. There are 2 creek crossings, however, which, depending on water levels, will probably require a higher clearance vehicle. So anyway, without further ado, I hope you enjoy the scenes. It's about 4:40 in the morning. I just turned right onto the 14NN road from Highway 114. I think I'm supposed to go on this for about 7 miles before turning onto another dirt road. So I have turned right from the 14NN road onto this 15GG road. The last road was actually pretty good, just kind of washboardy. This one's about the same so far. And as you can see, it is now significantly rougher. It's not all that bad yet, just more washboardy and more protruding rocks. I'm still going on the stretch of what I think is the 14DD road, and I hope, I think that along with the previous stretch of road, this is Forest Road 794 anyway. But anyway, I've come up to this point where you have to drive across this creek crossing, and it looks like, yeah, there's these concrete slabs across the bed of it to make it easier, but it's just a trickle at this point, so this isn't going to pose any problem. A little bumpy. The road's getting a little rougher still, but not bad yet. It's still got a ways to go. So after something like 23 total miles so far of dirt road, I'm now coming to this signed fork in the road at which if you want to go to the peak, you take the left fork of this, not that way, but straight, the left fork and upward. And my understanding is there's about 4 to 5 miles left to the trailhead. See you there. So here now I have the second of the 2 creek crossings, and this one's Nutris Creek, much more substantial of a crossing. Again, we got those concrete slabs. I can see the bottom of it. Doesn't look like it's all that deep, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem here. No, it wasn't too bad. Should be getting close here. It's about 6:05 in the morning here on August 21st, Thursday, August 21st, 2025. Finally at the Stewart Creek trailhead here after what I think was about 27 miles just of dirt road to get here. So I'm glad to be starting on the hike and out of the car. It's getting light out. No need of any flashlight. We have the initial sign, Stewart Creek Trail. On the initial part of the Stewart Creek Trail, which from the trailhead goes initially in a west heading, then veers more to the southwest. The mountain itself, San Luis Peak, is to the southwest of here. So as far as the tale of today, it's kind of a mixed bag, I guess, on endurance stats. Kind of mid to heavy on the distance. My understanding is it's a total of somewhere over a little over 13 miles altogether, and kind of light on elevation gain. I think about 3,600 in total feet in elevation gain, partly due to the high elevation relatively of the trailhead back there, which is 10.5, and the fact that the mountain itself rises to just over 14,000. So, and it's I believe just basically a class 1 trail all the way to the top. So I'm looking forward to a nice hike today. Some good scenes. Been a pretty level path so far. I think it will be for a little while longer. I can see the signs of fall have already begun. So it continues to get lighter. Still going along on this kind of leisurely stretch at the beginning to the right of Stewart Creek, to the north of it, over there in those willows. And I've begun to gain slight bits of elevation here. Still going mostly through the woods in the southwest direction still. Gaining modest bits of elevation along the way. As you can probably tell, the path has for a while now gotten distant from the creek, although I can still hear it, and above it. I've come up closer to the creek now again. It looks like I'm headed into some foliage and willows here. Well, this lower approach hike has seemed a bit long. I feel like I've started to gain a little bit more elevation than it was at the beginning, although still pretty modest. This path does go through some pretty thick foliage in places, but it remains nicely discernible. Definitely gaining more elevation now, like I said. Pretty far from the creek though again. Way down there. Switch back up this hill. Well, trees are starting to get more gnarled and thinner. Well, I'm definitely emerging here into the open. Probably close to 12,000 feet anyhow, in the vicinity. Yeah, still headed in a southwest direction overall. Looks like the path has to kind of make a curve through this here drainage. Well, I'm still going through these willow bushes on a moderate incline of this path. The next stage of this is going to be to make my way up to that saddle up there. Now I've been going down just a bit. As I understand it, I have to cross a creek a little ways from here before ascending the saddle, or to the saddle. Well, I think I'm at the creek crossing, which is dry. It is mid-August though. So I'm going to head towards that slope, make my way up to the saddle. So you're looking at the slope I have to go up, which reaches that saddle there, and the saddle's about 13.1. I think I'm at about 13.3. Got about 800 vertical feet to make it up that. I can't discern much of the actual path from here, but I think it just zigzags and switchbacks its way up. So for all the gradualness of this hike so far, I think this is going to be where it starts to get real. And once I get up to the saddle, I'll start back in the original direction again, kind of. And if you're wondering, that there is not, that you've been looking at this whole time, that is not San Luis Peak itself. That's the actual mountain is behind that. That's the 13er point. So anyways, we get started on this path towards the saddle. Still going through the willow bushes. It has gotten appreciably steeper though. Well, I'm out of the willow bushes. Well, it's the toughest part of this hike so far, but it is on a very nicely made trail. Wow. So switch back in my way up. looking down at the portion of the slope that I've come up so far on my way to the saddle. And if you look down there far enough, you can maybe see it has a creek bed and a path. As the path goes farther down there into that basin, what I've come so far, I've come that far, and I got a little ways up to get to the saddle though. This is about the rockiest this path has gotten yet. Probably be rocky up higher though, I imagine. Okay, now going around that corner, you can kind of see part of the rest of the route and the mountain itself. I'm getting close to the saddle. Fairly windy up here. After reaching the saddle between 13er Organ Mountain and San Luis itself, walk briefly along the wide stretch of the ridge shown here, then hike a steep stretch around the left side of the high point on the right. After that, go on an ascending traverse on the left side of the peak's northeast ridge. Higher up, briefly switch to the right side, and then finally follow the ridge itself on the last stretch to the summit. Pretty steep gravelly path up this part, but I'm not really slipping. This is kind of a grueling death march up this thing. The crow's not having similar problems. Now the steepness on that has abated, at least temporarily. I'm just kind of contouring right now around the left side of that high point that I bypassed, and it looks like you may be able to see up there. I'm going to continue to hike along the left or south side of the ridge and do a kind of ascending traverse up that side until I reach the ridge crest somewhere up higher. And where I had been on an initial westward stretch from the saddle to bypass this high point, I am now veering in a more southwest direction again, and then I'll get to the saddle, or sorry, the ridge crest up there eventually here. Alright, so this gravelly and talus-y ascent is picking up into more steepness again. Back toward the saddle there. Keep on chugging along here. So as these stretches that involve any looseness tend to be a little more hazardous on the way down, it is worth being careful on this route even, but there hasn't been anything so far, even on the way down, that's really too treacherous. Well, I'm coming back down that really steep, rocky part of it that was bypassing that high point there. Sure is nice to be going down this thing, not up it. Well, there's a look at San Luis Peak. I guess one of those moments I look up there, it's far enough down, I'm like thinking, oh, I can't believe I was all the way up there. But there it is. I've reached the saddle and I'm going to embark back down into the creek drainage there, and a long hike back to the trailhead. The looseness is a little tougher to negotiate, a little more hazardous coming down that part of the saddle hike stretch back there. I don't know if you recall this part of the path kind of next to this, looks like a recent landslide, but here I am down here and about to head back into the willows, go over the dry creek bed again, and continuing through the willows, getting back to the lower approach hike, which is pretty long. So today's mountain climb journey is coming to an end. I've gotten to the point now I can see the cars up at the trailhead up there. It was a nice climb today. Nothing too crazy. Got to visit a mountain in a place I haven't before, and it was nice to enjoy just a nice hike up a mountain instead of some of the craziness. Anyways, I'll have more to say at the end. Stay tuned for final images and analysis. The round trip on this route took me about 7 hours and 10 minutes to complete, which of course includes the various fumblings of documentation, with about 3.5 hours to reach the top. The lower portion of the approach hike was a bit on the long side, but not too long. The most grueling part of the route to me, as I mentioned earlier, was in bypassing the high point just after reaching the saddle. Overall, this occasion provided the chance to enjoy in particular the more idyllic aspects of nature and mountain climbing. One thing that stood out to me were the many gnarled old trees close to timberline. I do love a good gnarled, weathered old tree. Maybe I can identify with it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll leave you with some final impressions.